So it's 2:01. We'll give just a couple more minutes for anybody else to join, and then we will get started with the presentation. So just hang tight for another minute or two.
It's really exciting to see so many people on this. This is a great opportunity, and we want to thank all of you all for joining us and for our great speakers today. Thank you all.
We are a learning lab training that we're hosting on hosting a virtual event for your nonprofit organization. Over the past couple of months, Legacy Foundation, we've received a number of phone calls and emails and inquiries asking if we have any resources or information or knowledge about what platforms to use and how to host virtual events. And this is new territory for most all of us. And so, you know, it's not something that Legacy Foundation that we've had a lot of experience with, but I did think of a number of organizations that came to mind that were kind of early adapters in this, either because they already had events scheduled and so they had to be, or there were things coming up, so they had to quickly reroute events that were already happening and make them go virtual. And so I'm really happy that these organizations were able to join us today as part of this panel discussion on hosting virtual events. A little bit about Legacy Foundation. I know we've worked with a number of you that are on the call, but we are the community foundation for Lake County. And so we give out grants to nonprofit organizations. We give out scholarships for students to attend college. And we manage donor funds and help donors with their charitable giving. So since we have mostly nonprofits, there should be probably all nonprofits on the call today, I also would be making sure that you know about our current grant opportunities. We do have 2 grants that are currently open. And so one is for innovative COVID response initiatives. So looking at how we can help to recover from the impact of COVID in kind of this and return to the new normal, looking at how we can respond as a community, bringing, and it could be, the innovative piece could be changing the way that you as an organization are doing things, how we as a community respond to the economic impact and the consequences of COVID and us all returning to our lives, you know, in this kind of post-COVID world. And the second opportunity that is currently open is a partnership with Crown Point Community Foundation and Foundations of East Chicago to provide grants for strategic restructuring or I'm blanking on it, strategic restructuring or emergency preparedness plans for your organization. And so if your organization needs funding to help either develop those plans or implementing them, that grant opportunity is available. And so more information on those can be found on our website at www.legacyfdn.org. And so I do want to keep moving though, so can't spend too much time on that because we have a full schedule with our panelists today. So I'd like to introduce Ryan Elenkowski, who is the Executive Director of St. Jude House, Bonnie Hawksworth, the Operations and Special Events Manager at Shirley Heinze Land Trust, Andrea Huntington, Director of Development at Shirley Heinze Land Trust, and Jill Schluter Kim, Executive Director at Girls on the Run of Northwest Indiana. And so we're going to get started today with Jill from Girls on the Run, talking to you all a little bit about their event and the one that they have had, and I think the one that they have coming up, and a little bit about some of her experiences and what they learned through their event. So if everyone else can keep your phones muted, we will have time for questions at the end. And you can also put any questions into the chat box while the speakers are talking, and we'll make sure we get to those at the end as well. And Jill, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Kelly. And hi, everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces, so it's nice to see that. Yeah, so we have done one virtual event. We're working on our second. Our first one was our Girls on the Run 5K, and that was like just a real natural fit for us. We had our 5Ks scheduled for May 17th and 18th. And when we had to cancel all of our season and move that all to online, we still wanted to do something to celebrate our girls and, you know, give them a goal to shoot for and have kind of a culmination of the season. So we kept with our Girls on the Run 5K, which we always have. We had a built-in audience for that. And one thing first thing I wanted to say was, you know, think about when you're doing a virtual event, like why are you doing it and how does it like fit in with your mission? So this just fit in with our mission perfectly. You know, we always did it. It's part of our name, it goes on the run. So it was just a real natural fit. So it was kind of like an easier task for us in that respect. But I also have to also say it was really good for our staff and our spirits. It really kept up. It was a pretty, you know, challenging time, and we were pretty down. So it did help keep our spirits up as well as, you know, keep the excitement going about Girls on the Run. We wanted to keep our organization top of mind for people. So, you know, doing frequent posts and emails kept that excitement going. We also had some things that we had already purchased on hand that we could use to do this, so we didn't have to have a lot of expenses for it. So we had medals that we had from last year left over that we could send out to participants. We had bibs left over that we could send out to participants, so we didn't have a lot of cost involved. So that was also obviously a benefit for us. So we set it up just with our same registration company system that we always use. It's called Race Planner. They're fantastic. So that was really easy to set up. And through that, people had the option, well, they registered. And one thing we did do is try to keep it very inexpensive. So it was $10 for anyone who wanted to do it. For our girls that were already registered, it was free. For our coaches that had volunteered, it was free. But then we also gave people the option to give more. So it was $10 to register, and then we were asked, would you like to give more of a donation? We also had a few items in our little shop to add on. Again, things that we had on hand that we knew we could bring in some funds right away. Things like tutus and capes. A couple other items that people picked up, and you know, we raised a few funds that way. One thing we had to really think about was just changing our expectations for this event. So typically we have about 3,000 runners participating over the Girls on the Run weekend, and that's with girls and adults as well. And we ended up with about 600 people, and that includes the girls. So obviously a much smaller number, but still we were happy. We set our expectations fairly low. We thought if we had 200 people, we'd be happy to have that. So, you know, being kind of realistic about what kind of interaction you're going to get was helpful for us, because then we were just thrilled with the amount we did get. On 5K day, we didn't have like a certain time for people to run, or we actually offered up, run or just get some exercise, go for a bike ride. We had like a whole sheet of other activities people could do as well, like a workout that you could do. But really anything, walk, run, play something outside, just being active indoors or outdoors. And then we asked people to record what they did, either a video, pictures, and then share those back with us. And that was great too. I think it helped people feel like they were interacting and really being a real part of the event. And then the other thing we did, we had stuff going on all day on Facebook was our venue for hosting it. So we had videos that we had pre-loaded to show at certain times, and we had a schedule all worked out. And that was really helpful, to have those live things or videos already scheduled. The one thing we did that didn't quite work was we had some people outside of our agency do some live videos that were going to be streamed on our Facebook, and that did not work as well as we had hoped. So we learned a couple lessons there that was technology that we just weren't quite ready for. So I would say whatever you do, be very intentional and do all the really plan things out and really practice things as well. For our next event, we've already had one run through for our half-hour event. We're going to be doing another run through because there's so many little technical pieces that seem like they'd be easy and would just go smoothly, but it's not as clear as it should be. It's not as obvious as it should be. So scheduling, having multiple people responsible for things, and practicing are keys to our event and lessons that we learned as well. Another thing that we learned was to keep it simple. And that's a lesson we've really learned with our next event that's coming up on Thursday. And that is it's called Luna Fest, and it's a film festival. It's films by, for, and about women. And what we're doing is we just released the link to the films, and that will be a 24-hour link. But we are doing a half an hour live event as well. And what we did leading up to it is that the folks on our committee, we went to the LunaFest site and we saw there were 8 nonprofits across the country hosting LunaFest. So we split it up and we each went to a different LunaFest, and we took notes. We learned what worked well, what didn't work well, and we kind of took the best, what we thought were the best practices from each event, and are using that for our event. So the ones that were overly complicated, there were too many places for things bad to happen that we saw, and it did, like just technical glitches that frustrated people, and we could see people just kind of checking out if they were frustrated. And also things like I signed up for one and then I kind of forgot I'd signed up for it, and I didn't get any kind of reminders, there was no promoting it. So I kind of forgot about it until the last minute, and then finally got to watch the film. So, promoting things. If you think you're promoting something too much, you're not. Just keep promoting it in every which way you can. We've done emails and Facebook posts and text even to some people within our network. I'm running out of time. So another thing is just being really clear to people on how you envision things working. So with our 5K, the biggest question we kept being asked was, how does this work? How does this virtual 5K thing work? So we sent out an email that it was a cute, fun email, but it was just super clear instructions. Number 1, pick what you're going to do. 5K your way, 5K, going for a bike ride, exercising. Number 2, take photos of it, accomplish it, reach your goal. Number 3, share it with us. So that was it. You know, we just made really clear steps on how to do it so that people weren't confused. Like, I still don't know how I'm supposed to do this 5K thing, you know? So that was a good lesson for us too. Like, people just need really clear instructions on what they're doing. Yeah, I think our 5K, we consider it was a success. Oh, the other thing we're doing this week is a silent auction. So we had silent auction items. We had to cancel an event in the spring as well that we actually just ended up canceling, our big event called the Sneaker Soiree. But we had a lot of silent auction items for it already. So we really didn't solicit much new items, a couple things. But we were able to take what we had and put it into a silent auction site. It's called Excel Events. And that is a really great site. It's $250 to use. It's really simple and easy to use. And I saw a question, yeah, most of our participants were already either families, girls, their families, long-term supporters, you know, part of our network, people who follow us on Facebook. Yeah, so we weren't really reaching a new audience with that event. We're trying to expand our audience a little bit with this LunaFest event, just by reaching a little beyond to other folks, but because it's just kind of a broader experience. Yeah, and I will post the silent auction link in the chat, because I would highly recommend it. If you have the items, I'd recommend it. I feel like I'm running over my time, Kelly, so I'm gonna
Right.
wrap it up.
You're right there. So we can wrap up now. And if there are any other questions for Jill, we will have time at the end for some question and answers. But now we will move on to Ryan Elenkowski from St. Jude House. So thank you again, Jill, for sharing your experience. And hold on. So Ryan, Erica has pulled up some slides that you sent to us to use with your presentation.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Good afternoon, everyone. I definitely have a few virtual event nuggets for you today. I just wanted to start with a simple disclaimer to everyone on the call today that St. Jude House is not a virtual event expert by any means. Our goal today is just to share our story and hope it will give you at least one nugget of knowledge to take away. You will notice throughout this presentation, my eyes will be glued to my notes, as I've chosen not to wing this one and speak off cuff as I prefer to usually do. Rather, I wanted to give you as much value for your time, so I'm gonna stick very close to my notes today. So I just wanted to give you a brief background on how we came to launch our virtual variety show in late April. It was actually April 24th. When COVID-19 shut everything down in mid-March, St. Jude House, we were 2 months away from our largest fundraiser of the year, which has been called Stand Up for St. Jude House. And we were just 3 months away from the end of our fiscal year. So we were staring down a major potential financial shortfall by losing that fundraiser. By the end of March, as Northwest Indiana shut down, we brainstormed with our development committee with about 24 local business leaders on how we should proceed. And it was clear that an in-person event was not going to happen in May or June before the end of our fiscal year. So we had to respond strategically and creatively. So our solution was we need to do a Stand Up for St. Jude House comedy night and virtual variety show. But the first question we asked ourselves might come as a surprise to many of you. I want to share with you all the true secret of our virtual variety show success. The first question we asked ourselves when we decided to do a virtual event was, how are we going to make up the financial shortfall that came as a result of losing our largest event of the year? So no, that was not the first question that we asked ourselves. The first one was, what does our community need right now? With that question as our guiding light, we knew that we could not fail no matter how much revenue our event netted. I want to stop here before I go any further. With our St. Jude House virtual example, one big consideration we had to give time to, and I encourage you to do the same, is a virtual event the right thing for your brand? kind of echoing what Jill was saying. In other words, you don't want to just do a virtual event because everyone is doing one now. Consider it an opportunity to bring new awareness to your mission. And the last thing you'd want to do is have an opportunity to make, you want new people to be aware of your mission, have them remember it, and instead of having an event that may not work well. After you answer that question, what the community needs right now, I encourage you to make a list of pros and cons in terms of what a virtual event can do for your brand and mission. Let that be the true test if you decide to move forward with a virtual event. So back to the first question, like back in March and April when we were planning a virtual event, we answered that with our community needed joy, entertainment, distraction, laughter, and fun. And that's really how we built the event. So what was the virtual variety show? It was driven by Toyota of Maryville. It was a 90-minute professionally produced, kind of like a TV quality night of entertainment that ran live on Local 219 Facebook page. We also streamed it live on our St. Jude House page. And the key elements were comedy, music, magic. We had some live reptiles and a ton of free prize giveaways. And then also, like what Jill was saying, the two things you really don't want to cheap out on are marketing dollars to promote your event and a good top-notch production team that we found success in with Local 219. They turned out a project that looked pretty darn close to a professionally produced telethon. There was a crawl at the bottom of the screen, and it cut away to different sponsored commercials. And this is a really good point, is you want to make it sticky. So give viewers a reason to stick around for the event all the way till the end. Our stickiness was created on focusing on the viewing community, quality entertainment, and tons of free giveaways. This was also a data mining element. So by keeping the carrot of major prizes out near the end of the show, our viewership remained very high until the closing credits rolled. We also kept the event sticky by giving the audience cues and methods and reasons to interact during the show. So lastly, kind of the miracle ROI, the great thing about a virtual event is you have a follow-up tactic to keep awareness building and gifts coming in. You will be on track to create a major ROI for your organization. About halfway through the show, we announced an anonymous match challenge from a very first-time donor to St. Jude House. With news of that match challenge, we received thousands of dollars in individual donations and variety show and gifts, and continue to consistently arrive as we work towards meeting the match. I'm happy to say we have really big news, and later this week, we'll announce the results from our match challenge via a news release, if you want to stay on the lookout for that. With all that being said, while our virtual event can be considered a major success in overcoming a fiscal shortfall, we can't wait to get back into person events when it's safe to do so. Thank you so much for your time today, and I hope you found at least one nugget that will be helpful for you. Thank you, Kelly, Erica, and everyone at the Legacy Foundation for having us on today.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for sharing your experience and your story. And now we will turn over to Andrea and Bonnie, who will talk about their experience having the event over at Shirley Heinze Land Trust.
Kelly, before you do that, there was a question that was on here from Vanessa asking if anyone can stream online with 219 Facebook. So maybe you want to answer that, Ryan?
You want to do that now?
Sometimes it's easier than having to, scroll down.
So Ryan, with using 219, can anybody stream online with using 219?
So I don't think anyone can, but they have a business, so we contracted with them to utilize their professional services as far as different camera angles and being able. We certainly don't have the capacity to cut in and out, like to put in those commercials and sponsorships that we had. So That was one expense that we had to put on the virtual variety show was basically hiring local 219, and then they streamed that event, which they have a much larger audience than we do.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, so now we will turn it over, and then if there are any other questions as well, we can also have some time at the end to answer additional questions. But Andrea and Bonnie, turn it over to you.
Well, thanks so much for coordinating this, Kelly and Legacy Foundation. And I think I mentioned to you on a call, we've just been really eager to be a resource for other organizations right now. We had a successful event. We're feeling very grateful about that. And so we also just want to throw out too that if anyone has questions that they think of later or wants to bounce ideas off of us, we're happy to do that as well down the road. So just to give you a little bit of background information, we're a land trust, so that means that we protect, preserve, and restore natural land and water, and we've been doing that since 1981, protecting over 2,600 acres in Lake Porter, LaPorte, and St. Joseph counties. A huge part of our mission is also engaging our communities in our conservation work, so doing environmental learning opportunities. We're exploring different programming like what Jill's been talking about right now for other types of virtual events. But this particular one really focused on our annual spring benefit, which is our largest fundraising effort. And just to give you a sense, most of our support comes from individuals and foundations. So certainly this is an important event for us. Two major fundraising efforts that we have each year, one in the fall, which is a mailed appeal, and then our spring benefit gala, which is an in-person event that Bonnie is going to give you a little bit of background on.
Great, yes. So as Andrea said, our spring benefit is our largest annual fundraiser. It's held at the end of May, and it's also a feel-good way to engage and celebrate with our supporters. And while we were so disappointed not to see everyone this year, it was kind of fun to reinvent the event and potentially reach an even wider audience. So in early March, we made the decision to pivot and mailed our invitation to our first ever virtual spring benefit. So I'll start by sharing that we use Greater Giving event software, which enables you to easily create an event website, sell tickets and sponsorships, run an auction. It has mobile bidding capabilities, which we've used, and you can easily manage receipts and acknowledgements. And I personally really like the reporting capabilities. Okay, so now on to logistics. We accomplish our work with so many talented and dedicated volunteers who helped us in two important ways. We were fortunate to have spent the last year working on a website overhaul, and we made the decision to finish and launch our virtual spring benefit on this new site. We'd also been in production on 4 donor testimonial videos that we had planned to show at the live event. And so we would deploy those as part of our virtual content. We decided to produce additional content to supplement and provide the program content like we would at a live event. So we made a plan to release 8 videos via email and social media over a 2-week period from May 15 through May 30. So Erica, would you please pull up the spring benefit landing page for us to see? Okay, so this is our spring benefit landing page. Each email linked viewers to our latest video. So this is the last video featuring our executive director, Chris Kraus, giving our program presentation. And Erica, if you would just scroll down just a tiny bit to our artwork here, there's a Donate Now button that you don't have to click on, but this links to the Greater Giving site where the sales happen. And then if you wouldn't mind scrolling down further, you'll see where we recognize our donors and our sponsors. And all the way at the bottom, you have the opportunity to scroll through and see all of our video content. So we have 2 invitation videos, our 4 donor testimonial videos, our ED presentation, and then feel free later to go back and visit and watch. But right now I'd like to share with you a very short video which highlights a challenge gift that we were so fortunate to be able to offer.
Our natural world inspires us when we need it most. Please help us sustain the future of land conservation in northwestern Indiana. Please visit HeinzeTrust.org now to maximize your donation. With your help, we can secure this critically important challenge gift. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'm going to turn it over to Andrea.
So just to give you I'll talk a little bit about the fundraising component. So as Bonnie mentioned, we did do our invitations like we would normally, our mailed invitations, although we did make it very clear. Fortunately, I think Bonnie might have mentioned this, we made these changes right before they went to the printer, so we made it very clear that this would be a virtual event. I'm not sure what your participants or your attendees or your donor base looks like, but you know, for us, this has been a long-standing annual event, so we had serious concerns that you know, some of our donors would have questions about the logistics. So we spent a lot of time leading up to this, even before the invitations were received, making personal telephone calls and emails, and you know, just generally reaching out to see how people are doing. What we were really struggling with, I guess not struggling, but what we put a lot of thought into is really our messaging, because it is such a sensitive time and continues to be. So really the calls and emails were just to let people know what to expect, and that we really hoped that they would be able to participate in some way. We had a lot of thought went into whether or not to do an auction. It's something that we typically, at our in-person event, we have a silent auction, a live auction, and then something we call Funding the Future, which is a paddle raise to support, you know, sometimes it's a project and sometimes it's geared more towards general operating support. So for this year, we had been soliciting in-person experiences because people tend to really enjoy those. So we had received donations of, you know, someone's lake house for a week, or a theater. Well, of course, all of these in-person experiences during such an uncertain time, you know, not only the donor, but also we realized that a lot of people would maybe have concerns about participating in those. And many of our auction items come from small businesses, and you know, as businesses are opening up, you know, things are a little different, but at the time we were just really uncomfortable soliciting gifts from our small businesses when many of them were closed or closing. And so we decided to forgo having an auction, which was a little scary because we do generate some revenue each year through that. And we decided just to go with our, we do a mailed appeal that would typically go with our paddle raise. So we still did a mailed appeal letter that followed, I believe, about a month after our invitations were received. You know, the other thing about our messaging is, you know, we really tried to stay positive. I feel like we're really fortunate that we're still moving all of our programs, our mission forward, you know, maybe in a different way. We're doing a lot of retooling right now, but still moving, you know, everything that we do, advancing our strategic plan. So we really, when we interacted with our donors and people who were planning on, you know, attending our virtual event, we kept that message really, really positive. And I would say that this was a really all hands on deck event. We were fortunate that we had board members, committee members who all reached out early on and said, what can we do? So in terms of engaging attendees, I would say in addition to staff reaching out, we had board members that were reaching out. One of our board members had been out to a preserve and felt so inspired that, you know, he decided to write a letter to his contacts. We had a couple volunteers held Zoom parties on our behalf, socially distanced dinner. And so all of those things combined really helped to make our event successful. We had, you know, our follow-up was, I would say, similar to what we've done in years past. I think it's always important to thank people for participating. So it, you know, I would say the important thing is really the engagement, finding a way to engage, looking at who's attended or participated in your events in the past. And like Bonnie said, the fun thing was that we really had the opportunity to reach a much larger audience than we typically would. Sometimes some supporters in other counties would be hesitant to travel so far to come to our event, and we saw them participating this year, which was really, really great, and reached a lot of new people as well. So I thought too, we could just briefly, we just noted some of our successes and lessons learned. Bonnie, if you want to talk a little bit about, you know, we had early on people were asking about Facebook Live or, you know, live streaming events. So just what we found success with.
Sure, yeah. So we decided to host it on our website because we felt like that was the place where everyone had access. We found that while Facebook is a useful tool for promoting our organization and certainly to a different and, you know, sometimes younger audience, most of our supporters are not on Facebook. So we needed to make sure that they could get the content as well. So that's why we deployed it via the website, but then promoted it on Facebook.
One thing I also forgot to mention, I'm sorry. So Bonnie had mentioned when she showed the challenge video. So we were very fortunate that we had a challenge gift that was offered and was going to be announced during the live event. And when we reached out to our donors, we had one that had said, and this is a perfect example of people really wanting to be helpful right now. They said to us, what can we do? You know, how can we help you? Do you need a challenge gift? And so we let them know that we had one, and they kindly came back and said, what if we match that so that you have a larger challenge gift to offer? So I think that having that challenge also really helped to get people excited. And so, you know, overall, I would say, you know, we actually came out 35% more gross income than what we had budgeted for the event. And that was with 25% of the expenditures that we would typically have for our live event. So it was a very successful event for us. And Bonnie alluded to this a little bit earlier, but I know she handled this a lot more than I did. We did have a little bit of a tech barrier, if you want to elaborate on that a little bit, Bonnie.
Sure, yeah. So, you know, everybody has different technical abilities, and certainly some of our, I'll just say older donors maybe are not as well versed with computer and video and email and social media. And so there was a small percentage of folks that had trouble and reached out to us. And I mean, just simple things like knowing where to click to play a video, and maybe to open up your email in your, in your browser, not through the email, just little things. So what we did is just really tried to keep a record of which people were having trouble, because we kept sending out emails. We were worried they would continue to have that same problem and become frustrated. So Andrea actually took the initiative to each time an email went out, she, hand held them and made sure that they were able to get that content. And so I do think being prepared for technical barriers is an important step of the process.
All right, well, thank you to both Bonnie and Andrea for sharing your experience and what you learned from hosting your virtual event. We do have some questions on the chat here, so I'm going to start with the questions here that are in the chat box, and then we can open it up to if anybody has any additional questions, or you can feel free to add them to the chat and we can get to those. Which may be the easiest way to make sure that we try to cover as many as we can. So to Shirley Heinze Land Trust, who produced your video?
So I guess full disclosure, I have a video production background. However, I just was in a producer capacity. We have the good fortune to have a volunteer who has, video experience and dedicated many, many, many hours so that we were able to produce these videos. So I would strongly encourage people to reach out. Video capability is something that a lot of people have now. And so I think building your volunteer base. We also had a volunteer who completely helped us overhaul our website. So we didn't pay for these things. And I think that's very, very important to try to build that volunteer base.
Absolutely. And so Ed Schoenfeld asked, it says information on the paddle race. So are you asking for information on, because you guys did not do a paddle race this year, right?
Well, I'll tell you what we do. We do this every year. So our spring benefit has a brand and a formula. And so we try to keep as much of that intact as possible. So what we do typically at our live event, we do have a paddle raise. We also send out an appeal mailing in advance of the event to try to generate at least half of our goal so that we can go into that live event saying, we have X amount and we need this room to raise the rest. So we tried to keep that intact. Now, as Andrea mentioned, we had that challenge gift. So we were able to tell people we have $50,000 that we can get if you help us get to this goal. And so I felt like that was really motivational, and we were fortunate to have one this year. We don't always have that. So we were just really lucky that that was the case.
Okay. So for all three organizations, how many attendees actually logged in or joined for the virtual portion of your event?
So we had, I think, around 290 viewers at one time, and we maintained over 200 throughout the event. And I think for anyone doing a virtual event, the one thing, if you utilize Facebook or a website, is at that time, a lot of families were watching together. So it's really hard to get an accurate number of viewers, knowing that there could be 5 or 6 people in a family watching the same Chromecast stream to their television.
Okay. How about Andrea and Bonnie?
Sure.
would-
So,
Oh,
oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so since our event didn't take place over a certain or at a certain time, it was over the course of 2 weeks. It was really anyone that wanted to go to our website and watch the videos at their own convenience. So we did, kind of keep track of the viewership, but really we considered participation. I mean, the number of donors that we had towards the event were comparable to what we would have had at our live in-person benefit.
No. And then Jill, you said you had about 200. Is that right?
We had 600 unique runners or participants. And then throughout the day, we did get a lot of people engaged, especially in our live videos on Facebook. People really, for some reason, enjoyed the Facebook live stuff, and a lot of comments and a lot of engagement with that. And then we had some videos, a lot of people went back on those. For this coming event on Thursday, right now we have like 33 unique tickets, so unique links. But just like Ryan said, that could be 4 people watching the films together at home. So we'll see. Our actual event, I don't expect to have as many people, but we'll see. We'll see what they brings.
All right, great. And Judy Katz asked if there's any recordings of the online events to watch and learn from. So if there are recordings available, can you put them in the chat box here, or if you want to send them and we can get them out to the group?
Yeah, I'll definitely share. We're going to record Thursday, so I'll share that when it's done.
Great. Are there any other questions right now? If there's not, I have a couple. Anybody else? All right, so my question that I have received a few times is about selecting a platform or software company to use for your event. There seems to be a lot of new virtual event companies popping up, or costs are rising for the ability to use those companies and that platform. And so how do you, and I mean, I've even done a simple Google search myself on selecting a platform for virtual events. And I mean, it's just everywhere right now in a full range. And so how did you go about selecting what software to use? And, and kind of what, what were kind of the costs that you should factor in to the expenses of hosting a virtual event? And so whoever wants to answer that one first.
For us, we used our same registration system we've always used, and then the Excel events, which is the silent auction, Girls on the Run councils across the country had used it, and so we just kind of had reached out to them, and we're all about not recreating the wheel, so we knew that it was a good company that was very inexpensive. It used to be $50 to use it. It was like $100 maybe, but they raised it to $250 because they should, because everybody's using it. It's still a lot cheaper than other silent auction companies, and you could use it at a live event as well.
And is it just for Girls on the Run, or can any organization use this software?
Yeah, anyone. Okay. And then we're just using Zoom for our Thursday night event because it's free.
Good reason. So, and so that software, the first one that you use, that's 200, what's the name of that software again?
Excel, ACCEL events. I put the link in the chat. Okay. It's $250 just to use their auction site, and then $1 per person who bids. And then there's other options too. You could do for various costs. You can do like just a donation. It does have the capabilities of doing more things than that, but we're just using it for the silent auction.
Okay. And then Ryan, you went a different route because you used the local production company 219, right? So you didn't have an actual platform, am I correct?
Correct. Yeah, the nice thing is you know, he had the capability. We did have multiple camera views, which was unique. But we were truly the guinea pig of that, because it's not something that is generally happening, is putting on, you know, these live fundraisers, right? We're so conditioned here in Northwest Indiana to just fill up a hall and be together. So it was definitely a learning curve, but we were super pleased with, you know, working with them, and you know, us just getting the entertainment and the logistics together, and then having them to worry about patching in all the stuff that was pre-recorded, and then being able to cut to the live portions of the night.
Okay. And then what about expenses for to Ryan? So were there any, what were, and we don't need to get into dollar amounts, but what kind of costs should people factor into those events?
Yeah, so I mean, it was an expense, but we were so new, I wouldn't be able to, you know, properly speak for Local 219, but Alan is the owner of that company and very accessible. You know, if anyone would want to reach out, I could certainly help connect you via email or phone number if anyone wanted to explore that option with them. But I really don't know. I think a lot depend on what you're able to put together, you know, on your own.
Mute someone. Okay, Ryan, you should be able to continue.
Oh, yeah, and that was really it. I'd be happy to connect anyone with Local 219 if they wanted to go that route or utilize his services.
Great. And then for Bonnie and Andrea, looking at if somebody's planning on a virtual event and creating a budget, what kind of, or what types of line items should you make sure you factor into that?
I guess for us, you know, we still did the mailings. We did 3 mailings in association with our event, because people still, you know, we've always done that. So we felt like that was a good way. So definitely the printing and the postage and the bulk mailing. You know, another thing we did was following the event, we did a final mailing, and we sent everyone a bag of candy that we had gotten donated, just for like a personal touch. So, you know, we talk about all of this virtual stuff, but it was really nice to be able to just connect with people you know, in that kind of a personal way too, kind of like a thank you. So, and we also had event posters that we sent out. So just trying to make sure people felt extra appreciated during this time.
Okay. So, and then we just got a question from Erica. So can you share to the all 3 organizations timelines for planning and promotion? And that's probably a little bit skewed because, you know, it was, you had to do a last minute pivot from where you were at. And then how far did you begin planning, and how far out did you begin promotion?
So I think Bonnie would agree with me. I would say, just so people are aware, in-person events take a tremendous amount of time, but so did this. You know, we were really fortunate, as Bonnie mentioned, that we started creating that video content already. So a lot of that was already available to us. So it was a lot of pivoting what we typically do, and we made the decision to change at the very end of March. So between the end of March through you know, our last video posted on May 30th, but it took a tremendous amount of staff time to create the content, the messaging, Bonnie with her background in the production, you know, timing everything out. So I would say it was just as much time and effort, if not more, than our in-person event.
And anyone else with Ryan or Jill talking about just how much time it took and how timing needed to plan the events?
Sure. So ours was probably off of my memory a little over 2 weeks, which was not a lot of time. I wouldn't suggest that to anyone. but we're very blessed here. We have a great director of development in Buffy Adams, and working with her and Alan, there were some very late, stressful nights. There's no doubt it is stressful. It's a whole different level of stress, and we utilized the church, which was the best place for us to be able to social distance and bring in the entertainment. But it was an experience nonetheless, and we were fortunate that a match gift did come in and other individual donors stepped up. So we are so pleased that we did it. Wouldn't regret it for a moment, but it's just the unknowns that are so hard to wrap your head around. That anxiety of what will happen. Will the reptile guy show up? Will a snake bite someone? You never know. It was definitely well worth it. So
Yeah. Can I ask each of the presenters to put your contact information into the chat box so that anybody who's participating can access it and reach out to you individually with any specific questions they may have with your events? And then since I haven't seen any hands go up and there have been no other questions, my last one to wrap it up is ask each of you, what is one thing you would do differently, or one thing that kind of went a blooper of your event, or something that went wrong that you learned from, that kind of like, oh no moment that you had, but you of course recovered from, but something that I think we can all learn from, things that maybe don't always go exactly as planned, and when we're planning events in the future. So what's one thing you would do differently? Or one thing that you didn't account for, or something, a snake biting someone. Or,
Right. I know for our 5K, we like I said, I think we anticipated maybe like 200 people, and we wanted to get medals to everybody, and then we had 600. And we hand delivered a lot of them because we wanted to save on postage. And then we mailed out a lot of them, and it was just a lot of work, and it was a lot of money too, because it's metals, they're heavy. So that was just a bigger expense and time sucker than we had anticipated. It was a lot.
Planning for all the time and expenses.
Yeah, we would if we did it again, we would probably do like a pickup spot for people to pick up things like that.
Makes sense. How about Shirley Heinze?
I'll probably pass this off to Bonnie. The only thing that I can think of, is what we talked about with that tech barrier, but that I don't know that there's a good way around that. But Bonnie, I guess any unexpected,
Yeah.
what would you say?
I would say, we retooled our event, so early in the COVID thing. I think there was some confusion early on about what the virtual event would be. We tried to outline it in our invitation, but I think we were still trying to figure out too, right? So I think people thought it was going to be a live event and there was going to be a time to tune in, when really we were just going to kind of try to get people to see one or more of the videos at any given time. It wasn't like one thing. And so I don't know if there would have been a way to be more clear about that, since we were still figuring it out, but I think there was a little bit of confusion about that. I think one nice thing is that we created some content that will live on for a little while. It wasn't something that just kind of came and went. And so maybe just, being able to outline that better at the outset for folks.
All right, makes sense. How about you, Ryan? Since we didn't have the snake bite.
No snake bites, which was great. Our biggest hiccup was, we tested the internet prior to the show starting. It became very overwhelmed. So we did lose our feed for about 10 minutes, felt much longer, but we plugged into the church's, hardwire. So, when you test everything, it looks good, but the internet can be a funny thing. So that was, probably more testing, prior next time if we need to launch another virtual event.
Right. we've all dealt with that over the past couple months, technology challenges. So that's something we're all familiar with by now. Well, thank you all so much for joining, and thank you to our panelists for sharing your lessons learned and experiences. You know, as Ryan mentioned, I know that they certainly didn't plan on becoming the experts in hosting virtual events, and so, but just by virtue of being some of the early adapters to going that route with their organizations, I think have some good successes to share. And, you know, we're able to pull off pretty successful and positive events. And so thank you again to everybody and for joining. This will be available as a recording. Erica, how will people be able to access the recording?
I did post in the chat. We'll send this out, a link to the video recording to all of the participants through email, and then we'll post the recording to our YouTube page.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks.